Today we're going to dive into a prophecy from Isaiah, chapter 17, that talks about the complete and utter annihilation of a great city. It's a really dramatic story, full of warring empires, a pretty stark warning of judgment, and in the end, an absolutely unbelievable story of divine deliverance.
Right out of the gate, the prophecy hits you with this incredibly stark prediction. Verse 1 of Isaiah 17 just lays it out there. Damascus, the great capital of ancient Syria, is going to be taken away from being a city and will become a ruinous heap. I mean, just picture that for a second. A bustling, thriving metropolis, just reduced to a pile of rubble.
But here's the thing, this prophecy isn't just about Damascus. It's actually centered on a crucial military alliance between Syria and its neighbor to the south, Ephraim, which you might know is another name for the northern kingdom of Israel. And as you'll see, the fates of these two kingdoms are completely tied together.
Okay, so to really get what's happening, we need a bit of a roadmap. This timeline here lays out all the key moments. It all kicks off in 734 BC with the first Assyrian invasion. Then you've got the final fall of both kingdoms in 722 BC. That's followed by a really interesting period of reform around 715 BC, and it all leads up to this dramatic climax with the invasion of Judea in 701 BC. The one constant through all of this? The overwhelming power of the Assyrian Empire. So let's look at that first date on our timeline, 734 BC. The first two verses describe this initial wave of the Assyrian invasion just crashing down on Syria and Ephraim. And the devastation is so total, the prophecy says the cities will be left so empty that flocks of sheep will just lie down right in the middle of them with absolutely no one left to scare them away.
Then, 12 years later, a second invasion comes and, well, it finishes the job. Verse 3 says, "The fortress shall cease from Ephraim." Now, this fortress, it wasn't some stone building. It was their strategic alliance with Syria. With Damascus totally destroyed, Ephraim's protection is just gone, and both kingdoms fall to the Assyrians.
Isaiah then uses this powerful, almost physical imagery in verse 4 to describe what happens to Ephraim. He says, "The glory of Jacob shall be made thin, and the fatness of his flesh shall wax lean." It's this really gut punch of a metaphor for a nation that's on the verge of total collapse. So what does that actually mean, for a nation to be made thin? What is Isaiah really getting at with this stark image of a country just wasting away? Well, verse 5 actually gives us the answer. It compares the Assyrian army to a harvester, gathering corn in a field. So being made thin is a metaphor for the nation being completely stripped bare. Just like a harvest, its people, its wealth, its dignity, it's all gathered up and carried away, leaving the land completely barren. But the story doesn't end in total destruction. Verse 6 makes this fascinating point. A remnant would actually be left behind. And get this, it wasn't the rich or the powerful, it was the poorest of the land. They're described as being like the few olives or gleaning grapes a harvester leaves behind, the ones considered of no value to the conquerors. And right at this point, just as the prophecy reaches its absolute bleakest moment, the whole narrative pivots. It shifts from this sweeping story of national destruction to one of personal repentance and a really surprising glimmer of hope. This glimmer of hope pops up in verse 7, which says, "At that day shall a man look to his maker." The focus narrows dramatically from whole nations down to just one person. And this man is believed to be King Hezekiah of Judah, the southern kingdom, who, as we'll see, chose a very, very different path. So what did Hezekiah do? I mean, this guy went all in. He led one of the most sweeping religious reforms in his nation's entire history. He turned the people away from all the idols and pagan altars that his own father had set up. He reopened the temple, and he called his people back to their foundational faith. But, even with this hopeful turn, with a righteous king doing all the right things, the danger was far from over. A new warning is issued, and this time it's aimed directly at Hezekiah's own kingdom, Judah. So what was the problem now? Well, verse 10 explains that the people of Judah had forgotten the rock of thy strength, their God. Instead, they had started cultivating foreign idol worship, which Isaiah poetically calls planting pleasant plants and setting strange slips. And the prophecy is crystal clear about how this is going to turn out. Verse 11 warns that the harvest from these pleasant plants, well, it wasn't going to be a blessing. It would be a harvest of judgment, a heap in the day of grief and of desperate sorrow, as their own lives and property were about to be carried off. Okay, so this warning, it sets the stage for the final, Absolutely dramatic confrontation. We're now at that last date on our timeline, 701 BC, and the unstoppable Assyrian army has arrived at the gates of Jerusalem itself. The imagery in verse 12 is just wow. It describes the Assyrian army, which was a multinational force made up from many conquered nations, as a roaring sea, the rushing of mighty waters. It's this unstoppable force of nature, a tide of humanity that's about to destroy everything in its path. The tension is at its absolute peak. The city is surrounded. It looks like it's all over. And then, verse 13 delivers this stunning reversal with just a few incredibly powerful words, but God shall rebuke them. The prophecy declares that a direct divine intervention is about to happen. And that divine intervention, it was devastatingly effective. Historical accounts, which are echoed in other parts of the Bible, tell us that in a single night, an angel of God moves through the Assyrian camp and 185,000 soldiers are slain. This slide just perfectly illustrates the prophecy's incredible conclusion from verse 14. Behold, at eveningtide trouble, and before the morning he is not. Think about that. The massive army threatening total destruction in the evening has simply vanished by the time the sun comes up. The entire threat is just neutralized overnight. So this whole thing leaves us with a really powerful question, doesn't it? The story contrasts the complete fall of Ephraim with Judah's miraculous deliverance, and the outcome seems to hinge on the choices of just one leader. It really makes you wonder, how much good can a single righteous ruler truly do for their people?